A very good morning to you. This is R.N. Bhaskar from BKBB, which is an acronym for Bhaskar Key Business Party. This is a channel that comes to you every week with policy analysis, conversations, and even occasional business stories. But at 8:15 in the morning right now, we bring to you news behind the news. We analyze some headlines that are important and examine them in greater detail. And my co-anchors today are Katya. Welcome, Katya. And Anurag. It's nice to see you, Anurag. Glad to have you here. And that takes us to the three titles that we're going to discuss together. The first one is, of course, inevitable. Trump slaps tariffs on India of 25% with possible penalties as well. The second one is a very interesting story of the government has built highways, new highways, improved highways. Who's going to benefit? And the third one is a crucial, important story arising from the first story, and that is, what will Trump's tariffs mean for the Indian rupee? Let's take the first one first. Trump did not wait for the 90-day reprieve that he had given India earlier, and instead decided that the new tariffs will be imposed with effect from 1st August, that is tomorrow. The tariffs are 25%, but even that is notional because he says if India continues to import oil and arms from Russia, the tariffs will go up, possibly reaching 50%. At the same time, Trump, the eternal negotiator, has also said India is still negotiating, whatever that means. Okay. So is 25% on? Yes, it's on from tomorrow. Will it stay? I do not know. Will it escalate? I do not know. Nobody knows. But one thing is clear. India is very vulnerable because the chart on the left-hand side tells you that almost a third of India's exports go to the US. You can add about 10%, take away 10% from the top of 30% because that is recent imports after the arm twisting that Trump did to our prime minister when he went to visit him this February. And despite talk that India is a great friend, India has not seen that friendship under Trump because you can see the largest tariffs have been imposed on Brazil. Next comes India, and then come others. The lowest in this chart is UK. That was expected. UK is supposed to be the poodle which wags its tail and follows America wherever. India is getting there. And then, of course, you have EU and Japan at 15%. India was hopeful of being treated on par with Japan. That didn't happen. Now, there are two possibilities that might take place. Trump says he's still negotiating. He wants to make India purchase its agricultural produce because Trump is in big trouble because nobody wants his agriculture. China stopped importing soybean, and now Brazil has stepped in and Brazil is exporting it instead, which is why the high tariffs on Brazil, because Trump does not like Brazil and Brazil reciprocates. We have not yet seen what will happen to Canada because there's a small reprieve. But Canada is another country that is blistering and is willing to match US tariff for tariff. And Canada supplies much of the electricity for the whole of North America because it has abundant hydroelectricity. And tariffs are not clear for China because, again, there's a 90-day reprieve. Everyone is kept on tenterhooks because Trump wants to get the best deal out. It doesn't matter what happens to other countries. It doesn't matter whether people die. Look at how a US is supporting Israel. For Trump, nothing matters except US interests. The world does not matter. And that takes us to the next story. And the next story is Manurag. Anurag?
Good morning. Hi, good morning. While headlines celebrate India's massive highway expansion, the data reveals strategic patterns that reshape our understanding of the infrastructural drive. Here's what the numbers actually tell us. Uttar Pradesh over 4,000 kilometers but achieved only 52% growth, the lowest among top performers. Now, this could be either underperformance or it could be a sign of an already strong highway base. Or it could also mean that the state has been using bulldozers for other purposes. Who knows? Punjab has a contrasting story where despite ranking seventh in absolute additions, Punjab achieved a striking 151% growth, nearly tripling Maharashtra's expansion rate. The transformation is particularly significant given Punjab's agricultural economy and its position as a gateway to northern markets. The border state, Arunachal Pradesh, often underlooked in infrastructural discussions, registered 115% growth. For a state sharing borders with China and Myanmar, this isn't just development, it's a strategic positioning that enhances both defense logistics and trade connectivity. On the other hand, Maharashtra's dominance becomes more nuanced when examined closely. Yes, it leads with a over 12,000 kilometers, but its 195% growth rate positions it as both quantity and percentage leader. A rare achievement suggesting coordinated industrial and infrastructural planning. On the other hand, the southern strategy emerges through Telangana and Andhra Pradesh as both states exceed 100% growth rate, reflecting the post bifurcation infrastructural phase. Telangana's 105% expansion supports its IT corridor developments, while Andhra Pradesh focus aligns with capital city constructions. What separates winners from participants isn't just highway length, it's the growth multiplier effect. States achieving triple digit percentage increases are fundamentally rewiring their economic geography. What's your take on this, sir?
Thank you very much, Anurag, for a lovely story. It just underscores one point. The reason why Uttar Pradesh is the lowest beneficiary is the lowest, is the poorest exploiter of this wonderful asset is actually one more reason. The government wants to win elections in UP and built more roads than was necessary. There's also one more thing to confirm this. Remember, in 2006, India signed the dedicated freight corridor deal with Japan for the Western Corridor, which is more crucial to India's economic growth. The government has not built that yet. But the Eastern Dedicated Corridor, which is crucial for Uttar Pradesh and Bihar elections, went ahead. It was completed last year, even though the returns on those highways and the railways is going to be poorer than that of the Western Corridor. Elections seem to decide expenditure and infrastructure rather than economic benefit. And your chart brings it brilliantly. Thank you very much, Anurag. And that takes me to the third story, which is very crucial and very interesting. What will happen to the rupee? Katya, could you come in?
So good things can't happen with the tariff that has come in because it's and just want to give a perspective that already rupee has been on shaky grounds from couple of years now because of because we've discussed it earlier as well. FIIs and FPIs have been very volatile, their entry and exit from the market, so that has been moved. Our trade hasn't grown in general. Obviously, it's been at a starting stop from May. But even before that, the trade growth, that manufacturing blast that we expected, it has not grown, even though we did a decent job in electronics, but in exporting, but that too might fail with the tariff. We might not be able to compete with other countries which have much lower tariffs like Japan, Vietnam, These are our direct competitors. We are still on tenterhooks about China. So electronics exports might also come. This is all bad news for the rupee. And but the third problem is obviously the penalty that he is threatening us with, which basically means if we are forced to buy expensive crude, then our dollar outflows are going to go out again, and which is going to break the back of the rupee. In fact, the reason why rupee has been staying up and not falling this whole year is because dollar itself has been falling. So all these are going to be long-term impacts as well as short-term impacts. Unless and until we get the deal that he has promised us, then it will not be good news. And also the long-term impact on India's manufacturing sector, which is not only big currently, it's also expected to grow. The biggest growth factor everybody was seeing in India was how it's going to become manufactured to the world. That has not panned out as well, and that might be a huge setback. So which is actually going to be bad news, and there'll be rippling effect of bad news on all our exporters. Already they lost business, already it's become they'll have to cut corners, and on top of it rupee would actually, we might even see some close downs. What do you think, sir?
Absolutely right, correct. Uh, the rupee is going to be impacted. There are two more things which might impact the Indian rupee, and that is whether the 25% tariffs also apply to exports of Apple phones from India.
Mm.
If that happens, the entire PLI scheme goes for a toss.
Right.
The other thing that one has to remember is that India has wisely, foolishly, that is up to for anyone to decide, that India continues to maintain most of its reserves in dollars, even though the dollar is falling.
Mm.
It's maybe geopolitics, but India could be at the other end of the wrong end of the stick if it sticks to the dollar. The third issue is India is yet to become a signatory to the BRICS move of paying for its exports for its exports and imports in its own currency.
Right.
India is too scared of annoying the US. So, which means India may have to bite the bullet and accept a weakening of the rupee and the turbulence of the rupee. Let's see what happens.
Right, sir.
But yes, these are worrisome time for India, sometimes for India, because everything depends on how the government plays its cards. Till now, it has not played its cards very wisely in the trade negotiations. It has not diversified its exports. It's not diversified its investments. Let's see what it does now. Thanks, Katya, for the story. And let us go to the questions that come in. And the first question that comes in is for Katya. So, what should exporters do? Cross the fingers or go ahead? Katya, any guesses?
Like you said, sir, they must now look for new markets where tariffs do not apply. And that it's not that it's impossible, but it will also happen. Also they might have to do some deals also, some
Yes.
kind of volume deals with a lot of companies as well. That might actually shave off some of the impact. Otherwise, as it looks like, if tariffs are levied, US also will have to face the brunt of inflation. So that's how it looks like. But much of this will happen. But there will be a few people who will not find it a good way to continue their business while rupees hitting, business is going down, and and all these factors that could also happen.
Thanks, Katya. There's another question. What are the three impacts of buying from Russia and against Trump's penalty? Look, India has already reduced its import of oil from the Middle East, and it has instead chosen 30% of its 40% of its imports of oil now come from Russia. Reason is Russia gives it a discounted price. Reason is that Russia is a strategic ally, even in the defense sector. There are also other implications. The US defense equipment has not proved itself in the two theaters of war that are currently ongoing. Why should India buy arms that have not been effective? And that too at 10 times the price. Doesn't make sense. But what doesn't make sense to India makes sense for America. And that is where the discord lies. And will India jettison Russia? At its own peril. So let's see. And there's another question. Will RBI start selling dollars to save the rupee? Yes, it could. But do remember that India's reserves are also the result of a revalued gold reserve. Because RBI had to give dividends to the government of India. So in actual terms, the dollar pile is shrinking. And the more India sells dollars, the more vulnerable India could become, because it's still very, very, very vulnerable depending on one or two key export countries rather than diversifying its exports. Takes us to the third question, which is about the roadways. So does it mean that India will stop building roadways for Uttar Pradesh? It can't stop. Elections are elections. So even though they're not economically viable, it'll go ahead. Look at the way it built the DFC through Uttar Pradesh and Bihar. The same story will continue, especially when the two major states where elections matter, Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, come into play. And that, in a way, brings me to the end of today's session. I know there are 3 or 4 more interesting questions coming up, but we've run out of time. But thank you for being with us. And do remember to click the subscribe button, click the like button, and tell your friends about us. And see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Enjoy yourself.